So, let's talk about the Disney Renaissance, Fundigelicals, and DreamWorks. So, before we start, a disclaimer. For the most part, single source, having only a single source for your research is like 99% of the time a very bad idea. It's not good scholarship. However, in terms of Fundigelical media reception, Focus on the Family and their review magazine Plugged In is really the only word is the only really real authority on the subject, as they're the only ones. Well, I wouldn't say reporting on how fundagelicals receive media. It's more they're dictating how those on the more fundamentalist side of Christianity should partake in media, given their place as a propaganda mill for the conservative fundagelical right. So, of the screenshots put here are taken from plugged in are taken from plugged in reviews of the relevant movie. I have looked through the reviews of all the movies of the latter half of the Disney Renaissance, with the exception of Pocahontas, because I couldn't find it. But so here's an example of what I mean by the Christian right was alienating itself from Disney in the latter half of the 90s. So we'll begin with The Lion King, which was largely seen as positive, or at least okay, for most of the mainstream fundagelical right. However, but once you get into the fringe cases of what I like to call the no Narnia fundagelicals, i.e., those who would say that Narnia, the Chronicles of Narnia, isn't good for Christians because it has magic in it, those did have problems with The Lion King. Add in the insightful spiritual components and initiate dialogue about the earth worship tendencies of Rafiki, and families can certainly find benefit by soaring through this bright land full of cuddly and comically creepy critters. Soak up the sweeping crescendo of Circle of Life and the romantic Oscar-winning strains of Can You Feel the Love Tonight, then dodge the scary semi-brutal moments with younger members while pointing out the examples of self-sacrifice and bravery. And yeah, so as you can see, largely a fairly positive review for The Lion King. Now, it's with Pocahontas that the fundagelical right, or the fundagelical community, turns on Disney. Once again, I can't really cite Pocahontas as an example because for some reason Plugged In doesn't have a review for Pocahontas on their website. And I have no interest in ordering back issues of a Focus on the Family magazine. So we're SOL for that, but so we'll have to move on. But personally, in my family, Pocahontas was banned for being historically inaccurate, i.e., it didn't conform to the Christian nationalist telling of the story, and for being new agey. And so we'll move on to let's see what Focus on the Family says about Hunchback of Notre Dame, shall we? An examination of Disney's recent evolution reveals a troubling trend as multifaceted as the stained glass in Notre Dame's majestic cathedral. The studio's growing up. It's moving on. As one reporter said, the training wheels are off, and Disney is bargaining that parents won't object to the ways Walt's heirs are tampering with the innocence of children. A dangerous hunch. Now, Plugged In's largely has the problem with the themes of lust and sexuality that are present in The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Something that I can't really speak to personally because I haven't seen the entire thing of it. It was largely banned in my family because it was anti-church and because the gargoyles were demonic. But you can already see from the somewhat glowing but a bit wet, cautious review, conclusion for their review of The Lion King to the conclusion for their review for Hunchback of Notre Dame. They're already getting, they're already starting to dislike what Disney's doing in the latter half of the Disney Renaissance. Now, for those of you who joined us last Sunday for our cover of Hercules, you saw me read a couple excerpts from Plugged In's review of that movie. So I'll instead go to the the actual conclusion. Hercules' other Achilles heel involves Hades' dreary underworld. It's populated by disembodied, tormented souls that float in the river of death, deteriorating over time. 3 witches, grim reapers called the Fates, share a single mucus-covered eyeball, passing it back and forth as they gleefully snip the final threads of human lives. When Meg dies trying to save Herc, her soul enters the river of death before it's rescued and returned to her body for a climactic resurrection. More than dark and ominous, it's spiritually unhinged. On June 18th, 1997, the Southern Baptist Convention called for a boycott of Disney and its subsidiaries, a courageous move. The denomination responded to numerous Disney policies and products inconsistent with the Magic Kingdom's reputation as a pro-family enterprise. Parents deciding to join the campaign may want to begin by giving Hercules the cold shoulder. Though artfully done, this occasionally inspiring motion picture includes significant weaknesses that keep it from going the distance. And I'm actually going to put a pin in that bit because we are going to jump briefly to Mulan, which I actually did see, but largely only because because a babysitter showed it to me. It was still banned in my household as I remember, but we're going to jump to Mulan and then circle back to what does the Southern Baptist Convention and have to do with this, and why is it all tied in with the rise of DreamWorks. Sadly, the film's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness. An affection for family in the Chinese culture includes Eastern religious philosophies, such as chanting mantras and praying to the dead ancestors for assistance. Too bad. These caveats notwithstanding, Mulan is the best role model the Walt Disney Company has offered young women in a very long time. And so, much like the recent Pixar hit Turning Red, the focus on the family has found major faults with, Mulan's depictions of Chinese spirituality and religion, and I'm not going to touch how reliable such a depiction is with a 10-foot pole. When it comes to, I'm basically a lot of satanic panic, spirituality panic in Fundigelical media reception is basically cultural supremacy in a funny suit. But that's a topic for another time. So back to the boycott. So in 1997, roughly around the time Hercules was released, the Southern Baptist Convention declared a boycott on Disney. Now, the American Family Association had been pushing for pushing for such a motion for a few months before that, because Disney had decided to allow the partners of gay employees to have equal access to medical insurance that that hetero married partners would have. And if you know anything about the religious right in America, you know that's not okay with them. Also, another driving factor was the Walt Disney Corporation's acquisition of Miramax, this studio which produced such favorites as Pulp Fiction, and basically, aside from expanding its market share and portfolio, which that's what it was. The religious right took it as Disney straying away from their family-friendly roots, and and all of this is coming along as the films of the later Disney Renaissance are being released, where you're getting Pocahontas and Hunchback of Notre Dame and Hercules and Mulan finally. Fundigelical right was okay with Tarzan because it's an Edgar Rice Burroughs story. There's not much spirituality in it. I'll link the plugged in review in the description below. But once again, it's okay. It's the first okay Disney movie in a while. But because of the acquisition of Miramax, and because of Disney extending health insurance equality to their LGBT employees, the Southern Baptist Convention, along with the American Family Association and Focus on the Family, decided to all champion a boycott of all things Disney. But meanwhile, while this is happening, ever since 1994, a group of executives and artists and technicians from Walt Disney had schismed to make their own studio, a small growing studio known as DreamWorks, and they've spent the last 3 years working on their premiere feature film. Now, Ants was the first one released from DreamWorks. However, The Prince of Egypt was the first one started. Now, during this time, and over the course of my media musings, I had mentioned that DreamWorks probably marketed, probably wanted to take advantage of the alienation of the self-alienation of the American Fundigelical right to boost ticket sales for the Prince of Egypt. And I was partially right because Katzenberger had wanted to do an animated version of the Ten Commandments even while he was at Disney. But what they did was they brought in a bunch of religious scholars and leaders, leaders from all the news articles I've read, which are linked in the description below, mention that they selected consultants from all Abrahamic faiths. However, only the Christian ones really seem to get any mention or any focus on in any of the articles, and most of these articles are actual secular news articles, like by name Dr. James Dobson, Rick Warren, big names in the Baptist and wider Fundigelical community. Billy Graham were flown into Los Angeles to consult on the Prince of Egypt. Notably, and they, actually influenced the direction of the movie as it was being made. Notably, originally during the Passover scene, it was going to be a mark on the door. These leaders pushed for the actual blood for it to actually shown to be lamb's blood. And also, they got the lyrics to When You Believe changed. Originally, it was going to be You Can Work Miracles When You Believe, and it got changed to There Can Be Miracles When You Believe. And as I said before, Prince of Egypt was going to be DreamWorks' Disney killer. Famously, artists who got in trouble while working on the Prince of Egypt were kind of pushed off to to do work on Shrek, which was seen as a lesser effort, and it was viewed in company as a punishment. And when the Prince of Egypt finally did get released in theaters in 1998, which is only just over a year after the Southern Baptist Convention announced their boycott of all things Disney. Funny how that works. Considering that DreamWorks had been working on Prince of Egypt basically since 1994. And it became a smash success. It instantly launched Disney or DreamWorks into being a viable competition for Disney. So what's all the point of that? What's the point of this story that I'm constructing here? Well, the thing is, we've kind of come full circle in that the evangelical community has a major hate on for not necessarily mainline Disney, though it is kind of bleeding out into mainline Disney. What the evangelical community really has a hate on for right now is Pixar. There's been, like clockwork, there's been a new evangelical panic for a Pixar movie ever since Coco came out in 2016. And so here's the question: Are we due for another movie that caters to the evangelical audience, or another animated feature that caters to the evangelical audience? And will it be as artistically adept as the Prince of Egypt was, or will it just be, open, or will it just be the animated equivalent of God's Not Dead? Um, I I actually feel that Prince of Egypt did kind of slightly pave the way for the Christ bait movie in major theaters, where we later had films like Fireproof, like God's Not Dead, like Jonah, on the movies catered specifically towards an evangelical audience for big screen, consumption, because studios learned that, hey, this is a demographic that will consistently, put down money, just, be one, because they're so media starved, and two, they are very interested in trying to sway culture to their side via voting with their dollars. And they will rabidly and blindly support anything that blatantly caters to their worldview. So I do really, really feel like we're due for an equivalent in terms of pandering to the Prince of Egypt. Will it be its equivalent in terms of quality and art, and production value? I mean, here's hoping. I haven't seen the Prince of Egypt since I deconverted. I'm kind of saving that for when I cover it for Media Musings, but I feel it'll still hold up on watching it as an atheist. But, you know, basically all this Fundigelical panic over Disney, over Pixar, we're really just getting into second verse, same of the first, and please leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Let me know how wrong or right I am, and remember, indoctrination is a hell of a drug. So you think you've got friends in high places with the power to put us on the run? Will forgive us these smiles on our faces. You'll know what power is when we are done.